Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Locker Room, our weekly podcast where we shine a light on the Bayou region student athletes. And we're about at that time, folks. It's almost the end of the school year, which means all of our spring sports are wrapping up and we'll be heading into the summer. But first, we want to talk certainly about baseball because the baseball championships, which are the last championships that are, I don't want to say issued, but given out by the LHSAA, happened this past weekend in Sulphur. We had a couple of local teams in there. Before we do that, I'd like to welcome our guy, Dustin Robichaux in. Dustin puts all of this together on behalf of Terrebonne General. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Stan.
It is a weekend where we should be applauding what we've done related to baseball in this area. A lot of teams have done extremely well, and I think it's a sport that we do really well here in the Bayou region. But unfortunately, didn't come home with the state championship this week. First, in the middle of the week, it was CCA who had a tough one. Remember, CCA was 36-0. They're going up in Division 4 Select. Odds-on favorite to win it all. They're the number one seed. They run into Ouachita Christian, and I don't know what the deal is with Ouachita Christian and CCA. There's some kind of voodoo that Ouachita Christian has on CCA. CCA played probably its worst game of the year. Now listen, when you play in 36, 37 games in a year, you're entitled to have one bad one. You just don't want it to be that one. And it was a one and done situation, and they come up on the short end of the stick 12-7. They fought hard because they got behind in that one really early. And unfortunately, when it's one and done, it's one and done. You're out of it. And the next day, actually, Ouachita Christian didn't fare well in the championship game. They lost to Vermilion Catholic, who used to be in CCA's district. So kind of an interesting note there. One thing I will say is Joe Tutone and his staff did a wonderful job this year. It's amazing, and I don't think people realize how hard it is to go 36-0. I don't care if you're playing T-ball. 36-0 is truly amazing. They go 36-1. Unfortunately, and lose in the semifinals right before the state championship. And the team that was in the state championship, E.D. White, had to play a best 2 out of 3 series with Turlings Catholic. And after the first game on Thursday, we were wondering just a little bit about how good Turlings Catholic is. They 10-run ruled E.D. White in that game. E.D. White didn't play well, obviously. They didn't pitch very well in that game. Gave up a ton of walks, hit bats, hit batters, and it just got away from them. But if you're going to lose a game, lose it like that when you're playing a best 2 out of 3 series. And what I mean by that is you don't have to expend your pitching. You don't have to do all of those things. You just kind of throw that one in the garbage can and you move on to the next day. And that's exactly what E.D. White did. On Friday, they come back, they beat Turlings Catholic 4-3 on a walk-off. A lot of times I ask people around the area, who's that guy on the team you would love up at bat, right? That guy that's going to come through with that base hit. With 2 out, you need a run, and there's a runner at third, and you need that big base hit. I got to tell you, Owen Porsche's turning into that guy. He did it again. A lot of you may remember he did it to get E.D. White into the state championship. He did it again in that second game against Turlings Catholic. Bottom of the 7th. They needed a runner at second base. Owen Porsche comes up and delivers. He singles to right field, drives in a run. E.D. White wins it. Everybody happy. As a matter of fact, I think Thibodaux sort of emptied out on Saturday as everybody went up to Sulphur to see the final take-all game on Saturday. And what we thought about Turlings Catholic was true. They're very, very good. They come back and they mercy rule the E.D. White Cardinals. Listen, that's a good baseball team. Nothing to hold your head down about if you're E.D. White, especially the type of year where you had some adversity trying to get some games in there. So it's a team that really came on at the right time of the year. So congratulations to them for even being in that state championship. So again, CCA, E.D. White, kudos for what you have done this past year. To all the other teams that were in the playoffs, Vanderbilt Catholic making it all the way to the quarterfinals, South Terrebonne winning in the first round, Houma Christian winning in the first round. A lot of our teams got bad draws. Thibodaux had a very good year this year. baseball is healthy in our area, and I think it's going to remain healthy for quite some time. But with that happening, kind of puts a damper on what we talk about here, Dustin. I mean, related to high school sports.
Yeah.
So we head into the summer. Don't get me wrong, folks. There are a lot of things that are going to be going on in the summer. But this little dead period right now of about 2 weeks is kind of low on sports, to be quite honest with you. I mean, even spring football's kind of wrapped up and everybody's graduating this week, and some did at the end of last week. That being said, we want to make sure everybody knows about our annual induction into our Bayou Athletic Hall of Fame, which is going to happen on June 18th. That's a Wednesday. It's a little bit odd for us. We usually do it on a Thursday. But because of a holiday that very next day, we're actually going to do it on that Wednesday, June 18th. Have a lot of terrific people going into this. And you're going to hear from 2 of our inductees right now. What we're going to do is we're just going to let you listen to a little 5-minute what would you call it when you pull a little bit out of an interview?
A blurb?
A blurb. Let's call it a blurb.
Blurb.
Simply because
Snippet.
my mind is not fast enough to think of the excerpt. Something like that.
Excerpt works too.
Excerpt works. So what you're going to hear from is Michael Parrington talking about his rise. Michael Parrington was a terrific football player at E.D. White, graduate in 2004 of E.D. White. Went on to play for Tulane, had a stint in the NFL, and now works with the Saints. And you're going to hear from Ernie Brown. Ernie Brown is a great coach in our area who a lot of people don't realize was a terrific basketball player who went on to play at LSU out of Terrebonne High School. He's a 1975 graduate of Terrebonne. They're going to tell you a little bit about what their early life was like. Just 5-minute snippets. But again, if you want more information on our Bayou Region Athletic Hall of Fame, it's very simple. You just go to brahhof.com. BRAHOF.com. Bayou Region Athletic Hall of Fame. Yeah, we're witty that way. We're smart. And you can find out more information. Again, that is on June 18th. By the way, the other 4 that are being inducted today is Merle Shakes Knight, a terrific football player at LSU, who is a 1959 graduate of LSU, but he played on that 58 national championship team. Ed Ogeron, everybody knows Ed Ogeron, right? National champion coach over at LSU. Had the honor of going to sit with him the other day and doing his interview, so that'll be a lot of fun. And one other person, actually 2 others that I'm missing that are going in there. Chip Didier. Yeah, we're going to probably have Chip on next week. That'll be a great idea. Chip Didier is the godfather of volleyball in our area. And we got to sit with Chip and get some thoughts, with them going in for the Hall of Fame.
And Mark
Davis, that's today. Today, Monday. Mark Davis is coming in. Mark Davis played for the Philadelphia 76ers for a number of years, where it was his best years, but he is a product of Thibodeau High School. So I think we have a lot of fun doing that. A lot of fun. We do that a little bit later today. So again, we're going to turn it over. First, you'll hear from Mike Parrington. Then you're going to hear from Ernie Brown.
Well, I wanted to be basketball more than anything because that's what I grew up in. I raised in a gym, idolized every one of my dad's players. And so then from that, dabbled with baseball. And then once we got into football, I had an older brother that, I got started whenever he got started. And then football kind of quickly became my passion because I saw the writing on the wall to figure that was going to be where my home was going to be. But I love basketball still to this day, consider myself more of a junkie of basketball. And football kind of found me. And then now, from that, became a junkie of football. If I was just going to say one person that man, this is exactly who I wanted to be. This is why I wanted to play. This is the type of player I wanted to be, and why I felt so passionate about it was everything. The more and more I learned about Eric, I just kind of wanted to be like him. From how he acted, the numbers he wore, the helmets he wore, all that stuff. He was really truly my idol growing up. Well, I got my first offer at Tulane's camp going into my 10th grade year. So my brother was a senior. I was going into 10th grade. We go to camp there. Giff Smith, who's a defensive line coach at the time, is now a defensive line coach for the Rams. Worked me out, offered me there. So that would have been my first collegiate offer. And really it was pretty early. Okay, why do we like Tulane? It's the education, first of all. And also your family can come to every single game very easily. And not just your immediate family, your extended family. And I truly believed that if I was good enough, they would come find me for the NFL. And I kept trying to tell myself that to make sure, like, hey, just take care of the main thing, and let the football speak for itself. And then now, particularly in the job I am now, I know for sure that we'll find you if you're good enough to play on the next level. So I had a really good freshman year in 2005, the Katrina year. We played Mississippi State the first game of the year. A couple NFL players on that team. Felt like I belonged. I was playing right guard that year. The next year, 06 at center, kind of kept building it. Well, then in 07 was Forte's year. 2,000-yard rusher, so you're obviously getting a lot of national attention there. We play LSU in the Superdome. We're up 9-7 with about a minute and a half left or something like that in the first half. And Glenn Dorsey, Tyson Jackson, those guys are Craig Stelz. Those guys are all on that team. And I can remember that was kind of like my measuring stick moment to figuring out, like, all right, these guys are going to be the best of the best coming up in the draft this year. Can you play or can you not play? I ended up having a really good game, and I think that was part of the film that ended up getting me signed, after my senior year. I think I was probably on the fringe of everybody's, probably wouldn't draft this guy, but smart, tough, good developmental offensive lineman. Like, we can throw this guy in here as a free agent on our roster, and he's probably going to stick around. And so after the draft rolled around, a lot of those teams kind of offered tryouts. And the Jets ended up being the only one that really offered, a full-time, undrafted free agent position. And fortunately, it worked out. I think the toughest part about trying to be an NFL player is understanding the consistency needed on every single day. And it just may not be good enough. You can try your best. You can use every resource that you have. But at the end of the day, they're probably going to be looking to replace you unless you're one of the 12 guys. The 12 guys that we're all blessed to have in your organization, your core players. Outside of that is who can we win with, not because of. And so I'd had a back injury. It'd kind of been something that, I'd kind of managed throughout Tulane towards the end of my time and getting in with the Jets to where I kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that this wasn't going to be my everything forever. But I also knew that if I handled relationships properly and I did everything right, then we could see if working in football worked out for me. The Saints had approached me from their familiarity in the draft process and everything and said, hey, we didn't know you'd be interested in scouting. We have a position open. Would you be interested in interviewing here? And so that's when I came down here, met with Ryan Pace on one afternoon, and they offered me a position, and that was 2012.
What happened, Stan, really impacted me for the rest of the time because I was a three-sport person. And baseball was my love. I could play every position, pitch, and third base, and shortstop was my two position in field. I was regular size, I want to say probably 5'10", 6 foot or something like that. And as I went through my high school career, I grew about 4 or 5 inches. And in my senior year, I guess I went from 6'1" to 6'5", and that gave me an opportunity, having played guard all my life, to play guard as a 6'5" person instead of a post player or stuff like that. My freshman and sophomore and junior year, I probably fit in to the team. I was more of a player that didn't look to score, looked to pass, looked to play defense. Defense was part of my orientation. But I heard a quote from a guy named Bob McAdoo, played in the NBA, and Bob told, the quote was, shoot if I must, and I must, say Bob. So between my junior year and my senior year, growing to 4 or 5 inches, playing every day, playing against the older people and stuff like that, it just, a light bulb went off, showing that I had the potential. I was always, recognized for my athletic ability, but that spark and that quote kind of shook me up, and had a very successful junior and senior year at Terrebonne High School. Well, Stan, the expectations, I guess, in the family was that you were going to do more than high school. The expectation was to go to college. I was fortunate enough to use basketball as a stepping stone that allowed me to get a free education. I got frustrated in high school. I was all state, averaging 25 points a game, and the scholarships did not come in. Every opportunity I had, either the coach was transforming and they wouldn't recruit me and stuff like that. So I talked to the guy at LSU. They were recruiting Larry, and he said, "Man, I got a school for you, but it's in Mason City, Iowa." So I told my mom, I said, "Well, you know, I know everybody's not going to be able to come to a game in Iowa, but this will help me grow mentally and physically." And she said, "This is your life. You make the decision." I made it. I spent 2 years in Mason City, Iowa. I made the starting team, averaging about 15, 16 points a game, 10, 11, 12 rebounds a game. I called a coach named Art Tolis, who was the assistant coach at LSU, and he said, "Well, we can't offer scholarships, but you're able to come and walk on." And I said, "Coach, all I need is an opportunity." Since he chose me, I became a walk-on. My freshman year at LSU, had 3 or 4 good games, started 2 or 3 games as a walk-on. LSU transformed me into a real man. A lot of obstacles, a lot of adversity you had to face, and I went out there every day, gave my all. I think he respected my hard work. I think he respected my dedication. I think he respected my loyalty. Stan, I like to tell people I'm related to a Mr. Frank Lewis. Mr. Frank Lewis is my uncle, my mom's brother. He probably was my #1 hero at that time. I think I come from a pretty great sports family with Lewis, and then I have a nephew, Andre Leon Brown, who played at Vanderbilt. At one time, I think he averaged about 30, 40 points a game, and one of the top scorers in the history of the United States and the state of Louisiana.
A huge thanks to both Michael and Ernie for coming in. Ernie, I got the privilege of working with and coaching with for a long time, so I'm so happy to see him being inducted. Again, June 18th is the induction day. If you want more information, go to brahoff.com, BRAHOF.com, and you can find out more information on our annual induction related to the Bayou Region Athletic Hall of Fame. That's it for us. Next week, a couple of more of those inductees, and we'll get some general information on summer programs related to high school sports in the area. Hope you have a terrific week, everybody. Take care.